State Appraiser Commission.
No, you're good. That was official and I won't
Okay.
make you repeat it. So,
Ready to
that's,
call roll.
all right. Thank you, sir. All right. Taylor Van Dever,
Here.
Brett Mansfeld,
Here.
Will Haston,
Here.
Francie Mello,
Here.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Here.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Here.
Eric Robinson, and Alex Bynum.
Here.
Great. All right. We do have a quorum. All votes will be by roll call today since we have a virtual meeting with one member participating remotely. That's kind of nice that with that new statute that was passed, where necessary, we can pipe folks in like we're doing today. And but as a result, when we do that, we just have to do a roll call vote. So we won't be able to do voice. We'll just go down the roll and take it from there. As another sort of like a housekeeping item, we're moving towards trying to be ADA accessible. And what that means is that our meetings are going to be transcribed. And obviously, a transcription doesn't recognize voices. And so you'll have to, if you could, let's just practice. We did this with our last board. They were pretty good. We, missed a couple of times. I'm probably the worst offender, but when you speak, just go ahead and just say who you are and then make your comments. And that'll help us with the transcription so we can make those ADA accessible. And we're going to keep moving in that direction until we get it all figured out and ironed out in a few more months. But I'm just asking our boards to go ahead and practice that. And so that way, when it's all official, we'll be in good stead. All right. So the next item we have then is the notice. We just have a notice of public comment period. I just try to put that in there to remind folks that they can participate at the very end and make their comments. And again, that'll be at the very end of the agenda. Those items, we try to limit those to items on the agenda into about 2 or 3 minutes and not repetitive. So if anyone joins us either online, please sign in into the box when it comes time to speak, or at the podium over my right shoulder if they're present, and then we'll acknowledge you then at the end of the meeting. All right, meeting notice. Notice of the February 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Real Estate Appraiser Commission has been noticed on the website since January 27th, 2026. This month's agenda was posted on January 28th, 2026. And those dates were as a result of the reschedule. So thank you all for being flexible and working with us when they had to cancel the meeting due to the snow apocalypse that we went through about a month ago. So got through it, and thank you guys for reworking your schedule and being here today. I guess it's up to the agenda then. So we need to adopt the agenda. Is there any edits or anything that we'd like to do with the agenda other than approve it if it looks fine?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Will Haston, a second from Nelson Pratt for roll call vote. Taylor Van Dever.
Approve.
Brett Mansfield,
Yes.
Will Haston,
Yes.
Francie Mello,
Yes.
Sandra Tuck,
Yes.
Nelson Pratt,
Yes.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Yes.
Eric Robinson, and Alex Bynum.
Approve.
All right, thank you. All right, approval of the meeting minutes. I'll just pause and let you see if there's any edits there. If there's no edits, then we'll just need a motion to accept the meeting minutes from our last meeting. All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Tuck. Got a motion from Ms. Tuck. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Van Dever. For a roll call vote, Taylor, just you can indicate by an I would be fine. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfeld,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
Thank you, Alex. All right. So you guys doing great so far already. You're gonna be fine. Experience interviews. Let me go and pull that up. I just have one that I'd like to add for Mr. Haston. We have a Matthew Chase Roten. He's a certified residential appraiser upgrade. And then Mr. Haston also has Hunter Holt and Troy Sadler. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Anyone else that you'd like to add to that?
No, sir.
Okay. And then Ms. Tuck.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll just add him as well. All right. Everyone else look good on that? All right, and I'll just read them into the record right quick. Colton McClellan from Mr. Mansfeld, Gil Irwin, Andrew Fillers for Miss Mello, Nikita Westfield and Clay Talkington for Nelson Pratt, Christy Badacore, Taylor Calhoun, Isaac German for Miss Tuck. Is that right? Okay. And then Nicholas Best and Kayla McKenzie for Taylor Van Dever.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, then we'll just need a motion to accept the experience interviews in front of you.
Make a motion to accept the experience interviews.
Great, thanks.
Second.
Got a second from Taylor Van Dever. Roll call vote. You can indicate with a aye. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfeld,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, great. And Mr. Robinson, I will get you caught up right quick. Because we're doing a virtual meeting, we have somebody participating, we're doing a roll call vote for everything. And also an effort for ADA accessibility. Before we discuss, we're just having everyone announce who they are so that the transcription can capture that. All right, very good. Education report then?
Mark Sunderman, I make a motion to approve the Education Committee report.
And I think we missed you. I heard you, but just if you don't mind, there you go, try it again.
Mark Sunderman, I would like to make a motion to approve the Education report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Nelson Pratt. And then for roll call vote, Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, election of officers. Just let me tee that up for you right quick. 6239-202B states, quote, "The members of the commission shall elect the chair from among the members to preside at commission meetings." We typically do that annually. Nothing would prevent anyone from serving consecutive terms. We have some that do that, that actually do prevent that, but not this board. So just as a courtesy, since we try to do that annually, this would be our opportunity, our first meeting to do that. So if our current chair is Brett Mansfield and current vice chair is Sandra Tuck. And if someone would like to just present a slate, that'd be great. And we typically do a vice chair, although not required, just to step in that role if there's a hearing up at the Hill or whatever. So
I make a motion to have Brett Mansfield and Sandra Tuck resume as chairman and vice chairman.
do we have a second?
second.
We got a second from Eric Robinson. Any further discussion? All right, they must approve of your administration. So good work. You know, the incumbents look like they have it again. All right, so roll call vote then. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Now for the director's report, I'm very limited. All I have is the budget today. And so as you know, that's informational purposes only. So there's not required to vote. Of course, we'll entertain any questions that you may have as you look into that. At our last meeting in October, let me bring it up myself. We reviewed all the months of record available to us to the end of the fiscal year. So we're in a new fiscal year. And then we have 5 more months of record, which is July through November. I looked at it and the only thing I saw that looked a little bit out of ordinary. I try to, I look at some of the training and some of that's available at the bottom for you, that snapshot. But I saw that there was an uptick in expenses in technology under admin cost max for August. So if you look under August and you scroll down and you'll notice that right there in technology, there was a bit of an uptick, not crazy, but $7,000. So I took a look at that and it looked like that uptick was due to annual Zendesk account subscriptions coming due. And Zendesk is basically how we process tickets that come in, inquiries. And so that's those annual subscriptions, they don't charge us monthly. They're just going to hit all at once. It's kind of like that Prime membership that hits you all at once, and so that's the same thing here. So that was the only thing that I saw that jumped out at me. Everything else seemed like it was pretty much on par. And of course, as a result of that uptick, we saw we were in a deficit, but we're turning in surplus this year already of $126,000. So, I mean, everything looks really healthy. I didn't see anything else that bothered me or seemed to be of concern based on the expense report and the ledger that I saw. So, but if you see something, give me a shout now or later, and we can look into that and unpack that a little bit further. But that was all I saw. And unless there's any questions, then we can move on to the legal portion of the agenda. Okay.
I do have a question real quick on the budget. The centralized complaints there at the bottom, is that complaints that we've received to be reviewed, or what is that?
Yeah, that's not a great question. There's you'll see there's I don't know if that's a base called centralized complaints and customer service. That's two sides of the same coin. That's basically our processing. They handle inquiries, the customer service side, and then it's also the first point of contact for complaints. Like they're sending out the letters, and so then they assess a fee based on use and proportion of program. And so that's what you're seeing there. That's why it's not very large, because compared to maybe because they're not an extension of legal. They're doing the clerical, sending out the letters, receiving, and then forwarding that to legal. But legal, that's going to be the brunt of that expense. Yeah, great question. All right, looks like we're ready for legal. Thank you for that segue.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll just go through each of the complaints, and if there's any questions, feel free to stop me. Number 1 is 2025-064891. In this, council referred the appraisal report to a reviewer who did not find any violations and found the report to be overall credible. Accordingly, I was recommending closure. Are there any questions for that one?
I make a motion that we accept legal recommendation on closure.
Second.
We have a motion from Nelson Pratt, a second from Mr. Haston for roll call vote. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Number 2 is 2025-05241. In this, again, the expert found that the report was credible and that there were no USPAP violations. Accordingly, I was recommending closure.
William Haston, recommend to accept legal's recommendation.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Haston to accept council's recommendation, a second from Mr. Pratt, Mr. Van Dever. All right, and then for roll call vote then, Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck. I think I missed you, Sandra, if you don't mind hitting your mic on that one so we can capture it. If you just hit the mic there. Oh, all right, well, we'll get you swapped out. All right. That one in the center probably work right there. No? Okay. We'll get you fixed up then. All right. So Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. That is approved.
Number 3 is 2025-060021. This complaint involves a contractual issue over an unpaid fee, which falls outside the jurisdiction of the commission. Accordingly, I was recommending closure.
This is Brett Mansfield. I'll make a recommendation to accept council's recommendation.
Nelson Pratt, second.
All right. Got a motion from Mr. Mansfield. We got a second from Mr. Pratt. And then we've got Sandra collecting mics. So look like one of those, those dictators. I have 15 mics, and they're all right. So roll call vote, Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck.
Aye.
All right, there we go. Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, that is approved.
Number 4 is 2025061471. In this, the expert found that the report met the minimum requirements of USPAP. However, there was a small violation of the appraiser did not provide a full analysis of the listing in violation of USPAP standard 15A and 22. Accordingly, council is recommending closing this matter with a letter of instruction pertaining to the referenced USPAP violation.
I looked over this. This is William Haston. Looked over this. And I would like to accept council's recommendation. I make a motion to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Hasten and a second from Mr. Vandever. Okay, you guys sound too much alike. That's scaring me. All right, sorry. Sorry, for roll call vote then, Taylor Vandever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield.
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck,
Aye.
Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Number 5 is 2025062821. In this, the expert explained that USPAP Standard Rule 22 requires an appraiser who develops an opinion of highest and best use to summarize the rationale and support for that opinion. The expert concluded that the appraisal report of the subject property did not include the required summary analysis. However, the expert concluded that this did not constitute an egregious instance of noncompliance with USPAP. Accordingly, council was recommending closing this with a letter of instruction.
This is William Haston. I was going to have a question regarding this. Do we know that if the 2020 incidents in the history section are the same appraisal or two different appraisals?
I'll pull those up and double check.
Also, with the letter of instruction, is it just a generic letter or does it?
It's specific to the
Okay.
complaint.
So it would mention the highest and best use or like that.
Correct. Yeah. And if there's anything you specifically want me to include in addition, that can be included in your vote.
For you people that are appraisers on the panel that do residential work, what is typical of a residential highest and best use conclusion? What do you normally have there?
We consider the 4 tenets of highest and best use, physically possible, legally permissible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. And we talk about those, talk about the zoning, talk about the size of the parcel and if it's on septic, how many bedrooms it might be allowed to have. We do that kind of an analysis. And that's if it's residential. Now, if there's a question like, could it be commercial, then, we look at that, but that might be the end of the appraisal. It might have to be switched to a commercial appraiser.
I think a lot of the issues that we see with that on the residential side is there's a box on the first page. And so you see appraisers just checking that box and not providing any sort of summary or analysis. And so I think that's what I would infer happened here. And so I know every time I do an experience interview, I really talk to them about that USPAP does require more than just checking that box. And I think that's a known thing now. So,
That's the reason I asked the question is because when I interview residential appraisers, I feel like highest and best use is the last thing on their mind. And I just didn't know what was actually required.
with the new form that's coming out from Fannie Mae that's going to be implemented this year, you'll no longer be able just to check the box. You're going to have to provide some sort of analysis and summary. And so, but right now, yes, that's one thing that we do see a lot.
I make a motion to accept the legal's recommendation of letter of instruction. Taylor Vanderbilt.
And then we can have further discussion while we wait. So if there's a second, then we can further discuss as well.
Sandra Tuck, second.
All right. And then we'll wait on the vote until we get that information.
Sorry, we're just pulling up the consent order to see.
How many options do you even have for a conclusion of highest and best use in a residential report other than residential? Because like you said, if it becomes commercial, then it's out of there.
Well,
I would think that it would depend on the zoning, is where you're gonna, whether it's duplex, single family residential, multifamily, what the allowable uses are.
Or if you're in an area with no zoning, and so then that would, create another obstacle, so.
Try to remember to announce your name. It's going to be hard. I know. You'll be doing that when you go home and you're confusing your spouses, but, well,
It was two different consent orders, so based on what we can find.
Could you kind of tell us what those were for? Were there issues with the highest and best use at that time?
Sorry, yes, 1 second. Sorry, this was before I started, so we're just trying to find the consent orders.
Okay, so it looks like for the consent order from 2021 that we had, the reviewer found the appraisal didn't comply with an area in the income approach section. Also, there were errors in the cost and sales comparison approaches. And this one, yeah, so it's like there are several of those. We have about 8 different matters that were discussed there. And so for the consent order, the person was issued a 15-hour report writing course for the 2021 complaint. And then this complaint closed in, it should say, I think 2020. Oh, look at that name. Okay, 2020. And the issues on this complaint, consent order looked to be highest and best use. And another sales comparison analysis error. And it looks like a cost approach error. So it's a story past.
And those are consecutive years, 2020 and 2021?
So the complaints, the consent order I just read from had cases from 2018 and 2019, and they were closed in 2020. And then the first complaint was open and closed in 2021. So it looks like we had, yes, each of those years. And the first consent order, the respondent was issued a 15-hour highest and best use course, 15-hour report writing course, 30 hours sales comparison approach, and a $4,000 civil penalty.
It doesn't sound like that anything's been changed in terms of the highest and best use.
I will say the previous reviews found much more violations than this one. They found overall the report was credible, and there's just a minor issue, which was the reason for a letter of instruction instead of a full consent order. But I'm open to whatever the commission thinks is appropriate.
I think if the letter of instruction addressed the highest and best use or lack thereof, then I would be okay with that.
And if If you want, I can include some links to courses as well so that they can review those for their continuing education requirements.
Yeah, I think that would be, William Haston, I think that would be great. I vote or make a motion to continue with the motion.
Was just giving you guys, or Glenn Kopchak, giving you all some time to discuss it further if there was anything else you wanted to add to that letter of instruction. But it sounds like we're kind of rounding that off then. So for Chair, if you think we're ready for a roll call vote, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, let's move forward with
Okay.
that.
All right, roll call vote, Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck,
Aye.
Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you.
Number 6 is 2025-050571. In this, the expert found that the report was overall credible, but found that there were a few minor issues. They found the site size is noted as 9,482 square feet, but that Meridata notes the area to be either 0.22 acres or 9,911 square feet, that the grid notes a patio, but the prior page notes no patio, that there is not, I note sale 2 is not transferred in the past 36 months, but according to the report, the sale is transferred on September 14th, 2023. However, based on the expert's conclusion that the report was overall credible, council was recommending a letter of instruction addressing the aforementioned findings.
Nelson Pratt, I make a motion on the letter of instruction.
William Haston, second.
Got a motion from Nelson Pratt, a second from Mr. Haston. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none then, roll call vote then. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Number 7 is 2025-060671, and it is related to complaint number 8. This complaint arises from a dispute between the respondent, who is an appraisal management company, and the complainant, who was an appraiser retained by a respondent. This complaint, number 7, is alleging workplace harassment. Accordingly, this is outside the commission's jurisdiction, so council was recommending closure.
Question, Taylor Vandiver,
Mhm.
does I guess fraudulent sales part of this come up in number 8? What is that all about?
The complainant alleged that within their complaint, but did not provide any documentation. So I use that direct quote from their complaint, just providing all the information they provided us, but we do not have evidence of fraudulent sales being used. It appears to be both the respondent filed a complaint, which is number 8, against complainant, and then complainant followed up with their complaint. So it appears to be a matter that's just outside the jurisdiction of the commission for number 7. And the number 8 goes into what the respondent number 7 initially filed their complaint about number 8.
Taylor Vandiver, I make a motion to accept legal's recommendation of closure.
Brett Mansfield, I'll second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Van Dever to accept council's recommendation for number 7 and a second from Mr. Mansfield. For roll call vote, Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield.
Aye.
Will Haston,
Aye.
Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck,
Aye.
Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Number 8 is 2025-060501. This complaint is related to the prior complaint that we just discussed. The complainant is an appraisal management company who explained that they were submitting the complaint pursuant to mandatory reporting requirements. They assert that the respondent involved both, that the violations involve both FHA appraisal requirements and use path violations. Specifically, they assert that the complainant signed and certified an FHA appraisal report without personally inspecting the subject property. I referred the matter to an expert reviewer. They found that the appraisal was materially non-compliant with FHA policy. They found that by inserting language in the report that shifts portions of the inspection and certification responsibility to another appraiser, they materially altered the standard FHA Fannie Mae form in violation of both FHA policy and USPAP. And they found that in addition, that the pre-printed scope of work on the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report defines the appraiser's minimum required actions. In follow-up, the complainant, who is the appraisal management company, explains that they recommended that the respondent consult a USPAP instructor for guidance. And accordingly, the complainant informed us that they did reach out to the instructor and was advised to review specific education materials. Specifically, the complainant states that respondent was provided the hazards of signing a URAR when another person conducts the inspection, and don't do dumb things by appraiser e-learning. I was recommending discussion based on that information.
I have a question. Do we have an obligation as William Haston, do we have an obligation to enforce FHA guidelines?
No, it's with if it violates USPAP.
So it would be a scope of work requirement under
Correct.
USPAP. But signing.
I
the
was just
report-
providing all the information that the reviewer provided.
But the main issue is that this individual signed a report saying they inspected the property. and
Correct.
did. I know in the past, we've been pretty strict on that issue. But definitely, if anybody has any thoughts or,
I do. Francie Mello, I have a problem with it. You don't know if that was a licensed person or a secretary, or you don't know who. It does say he was an appraiser, but he, she, they. But if you say you inspected that property and you didn't, that's a big problem.
and with that form, you can still sign it and not as a supervisor and say you didn't inspect it, right? So if that person was licensed, I mean, you can co-sign it. So, does FHA allow that? Yeah, I'm not sure.
It depends. I mean, VA will allow people who aren't even licensed to go out under their appraiser assistance program. But if something goes wrong, such as the value will come in low or something like that, then you have to go re-inspect it, as I understand it. But still, if FHA, and I know we're not regulating FHA, but if that endorsement has your name on it, then you better be the principal signer and inspect it.
Any thoughts as sent? It sounds like the Glenn Kopchak, it does sound like you might be headed towards a consent order. If that's the case, any thoughts as to the penalty?
Unrelated to consent order, but is there a specific, maybe online class devoted to FHA policy? It sounds like that's the biggest issue here that we might, is anybody aware of anything specific?
I don't personally think that it's maybe a little bit more than that they signed a certification saying that they inspected the property and didn't. I remember this came up in Arrow, and the individual who was the attorney that was advising, I think, in the state of North Carolina in the situation, basically recommended that the individual turn their license in because they were facing like a fraud claim or whatever. And so I think it is, somewhat serious. So that's my personal thought.
I feel like William Haston, I feel like I should probably know at this point in my tenure. But could you bring up that matrix of the classes? And I'm not saying that I'm really wanting to know or that this is a class or education issue. I'm just trying to understand. And I know that we've talked last time, and I believe that a monetary about, we could request a monetary
Yes, you can do it in tandem with courses, just a penalty or just courses, or take action upon their license. Are you wanting to see those corrective education courses that we've
Yes.
discussed previously? We can,
Yeah, just put it.
yeah, we'll get it up on the screen and I can also just go through each of them.
And I'm open, I honestly, do think it's obviously a big, the violation is warranted, as far as not signing the fact that you were, present at a property and not being there is a pretty big problem. I'm just not sure what our, ability is to, penalize this person. I would rather like to see some things at our fingertips than
Mhm.
some that come
I
out of
think
thin air.
they're pulling up the courses, but I do have them up on my computer. And there is an ethics, competency, and negligence course within that corrective education course that looks like it might provide some more information for this type of issue. Sorry, I think they're trying to work on getting them up on your guys' screens.
If you want to go and read it, that's fine.
I can just go through it, each one. Okay, so there's,
I think that the ethics is probably the way to go.
Mhm.
Can you just focus on that one, maybe?
yeah. So it says, provides a clear explanation of the USPAP ethics rule and competency rule, including real-world examples, and clarifies how to distinguish between lack of competency and professional negligence. That one's the last one. I don't know if you want to scroll to the bottom.
Looks
Could you-
like we don't have you on. Dave.
Mike, sorry, thank you.
It on? Okay. From, it does say, from an FHA appraisal guideline perspective, disclosure of another appraiser's assistance does not cure this violation. In other words, of not going in inspecting, as the inspection responsibility cannot be reassigned under FHA policy. So we don't know if they put in there that another appraiser did that, thinking that was sufficient to indicate that they had somebody else, look at it, a trainee or whatever.
The complaint is alleging that they signed it as if they performed the report. Based on my understanding of what the expert was providing, I think they were just concluding that in there, that would not have cured the issue had they included that.
Okay.
It's interesting because on the residential side right now, there's a shift where they're actually allowing, non-licensed individuals to look at property, but yet there's this like, so, I mean, I get it from like somebody's like, what is the path, forward? I mean, it's different because 5 years ago when we talked about this, I mean, it's pretty black and white, but there's a lot of changes with that going on right now. And so, but I still think that, definitely more discussion, but I do think that a class, a corrective education class is, and I'll make a motion that, the consent order with this ethics, competence, and negligence class, and if there's any thoughts on, a civil penalty, I would, be open to that as well, but.
There's also a scope of work, corrective education course class on here that says clarifies how to define and disclose scope of work, emphasizes the importance of appropriate data collection and communicating intended use.
Nelson Pratt, I have one quick question. Are they, when they say they, that they're denies the allegations, is the denial that they misrepresented who inspected the property, or that maybe they didn't understand the FHA requirements versus USPAP requirements? I'm a little confused on what that portion
Yeah.
of the response means.
Let me pull up the response just to give you exactly what they said. Essentially, what they say in their response is that what the complainant is alleging is not correct, and they deny the allegations essentially.
Yeah, to me, it kind of boils down to, are they denying that they misrepresented the report? Or are they denying, the complaint violates USPAP? I guess I'm just a little confused on
Yeah,
what.
they don't clarify in that. Essentially,
Yeah, yeah.
the sentence says, once again, everything said is not correct.
Right.
So-
Yeah. So in my general thought is, if the person knew they were misrepresenting who inspected it, that's a different conversation than either inadvertently checking that box and or thinking that what they did was in compliance with USPAP and they deny any wrongdoing. So I think depending upon which way we interpret that, it could be either corrective action with a coursework, or if it's something that was intent to be fraudulent, then talk about some sort of a civil penalty. But I don't know if we've got enough information in there to make that determination.
Yeah, we weren't provided information specifically pertaining to that. I'll say the respondent has been responsive within the complaint process and has filed their own complaint. Seems like they have some ongoing issues separate from this, but I don't have enough information to determine that.
Glenn Kopchik, one thing I've seen with some of our other boards is when there's those holes in information that inevitably come, we'll send them the citation order, and they're still afforded due process because they don't have to sign it. They can give more information at that point. Sometimes that opens up a negotiation that can be represented at that point. But sometimes all you have is what you have, and then you try to do the best you can and forward it up. And if they don't want to sign it, they still have. I mean, it could go all the way up to a formal hearing if it came to that.
Yeah, definitely. If they don't feel this is appropriate when they receive the consent order and they find new information they want to provide us, I could present it at the next meeting, or as Glenn said, it could get to a hearing.
Glenn Kopchik, I just didn't want you to feel bad, like you, because you're very earnest. You want to do the right thing. I do too. We all do, and so sometimes you're when there's an unknown, that you have to bridge, but there is a safety net is what I'm saying. Yeah. Got your mic there. Sorry, we're in the out there.
Okay, so this is Sandra Tack. We really don't know if the appraiser who signed the report inspected the property or not, because he said he denied that he did not. So we don't know that. Do
The
you?
expert found, based on all the information provided by the by the complainant and within the response, that the complainant did sign something that they did not personally inspect. That's based on the reviewer's information that they were given within the complaint. So that's what I was basing my recommendation off of.
Glenn Kopchik, where we last left it was a motion, sort of a pseudo motion. It was a corrective education with the ethics course with an open, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but open towards any other sort of, action in that regard. Is there any more discussion or anything that you'd like to add in results to that?
Yeah, I'll revise my motion. And so I think both of the classes that we mentioned, and then maybe give them the benefit of the doubt with the civil penalty in this case, given the holes. So that would be my motion. So it's
The scope of work, appraisal and inspections, corrective education course, and then the ethics, competency, and negligence corrective education
and
course.
that's 2 4-hour classes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I second. William Hastings seconds.
We've got a motion from Glenn Kopchik. We got a motion from Brett Mansfield for those 2 courses. We got a second from William Hastings for a roll call vote then. Taylor Van Dever.
Aye.
Brett Mansfield.
Aye.
Will Hastings.
Aye.
Francie Mello.
Aye.
Sandra Tuck.
Aye.
Nelson Pratt.
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman.
Aye.
Eric Robinson.
Aye.
And Alex Bynum.
No.
All right, there you go. All right, very well. Thank you.
Number 9 is 2025029441, and this is a representation. This matter was reviewed by a commission member. In conclusion, the commission member found that the deficiencies represented material violations of USPAP standards 1 and 2 that affect the reliability of the appraisal, that the lack of highest and best use analysis, unsupported land value in the cost approach, unsupported sales comparison adjustments, and deficient reconciliation render the report non-compliant with USPAP requirements. and I put discuss so we can determine what the appropriate next steps are.
William Hasten, I'll be abstaining from voting on this case.
Any thoughts, discussion?
This is Sandra Tuck. Boy, they just made a lot of mistakes in here, and didn't support a whole lot of things. And to go back and increase a value by $100,000 and not tell why or support it is unacceptable. So.
Just in an effort to further conversation, I can tell you all of the disciplinary actions that are on the table and available. So obviously we have at the very least a letter of instruction, then we have a letter of warning, and anything after a letter of warning does go on the National Registry. After that, we have a civil penalty, and civil penalties can range from $0 to $1,000 per violation, however you so choose. And then after that, we do have suspension and revocation. So if we do suspension, I would need to know how long that suspension would be for. And then just a reminder that suspension and revocation, the person would have to essentially agree to it. And if they don't, then it would go to a hearing. We cannot automatically suspend someone's license. So it will be sent to them via consent order, and then matters will go from there. So those are the options. You can do a combination. I thought also classes are available too. So a wide swath.
And with the civil penalty, it's per violation, correct?
You can do, yes, 0 to 1,000 per violation. So in the past, like for example, the consent order that we discussed earlier that had the $4,000 civil penalty, that was per use PAP violation for that individual. So they were given that $4,000 civil penalty and 3 courses.
This is Sandra Tuck again. Do we know that the person extended their license? It expired 12/31 of 25, it says.
We'll check.
Taylor Vandiver, just for discussion purposes, you've got an appraiser license in 2000 with no history for 25 years, and then wrote a pretty pitiful report. I don't know if you assume that that's been going on for 25 years or this was a one-off mistake. Not sure.
Alex Bynum, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just wanting some clarification because I'm the new guy. Has anybody on the commission right now currently ever revoked anybody's license?
I'm probably on here the longest, and I don't think that we have done that. We have had some hearings but I
Right.
don't think it's ever got that far.
I was wondering if there was, usually when you see like the commission, like on the real estate commission, there's almost like a standard for like, well, in this instance, we would do a revocation and so I was just trying to figure out if anybody had actually done that before. So, and I'm not saying that would be my recommendation on this, but just, I will say that I voted no on the last one just because I didn't understand why we didn't fine for fraud. And then we would fine for somebody who just made mistakes. And so I'm trying to figure out the standard for which we all would go about how we would make a determination of, yes, we would fine or we would do a revocation, or if there had been some kind of standard. And it sounds like if none of you all have, that it would be hard to figure out where those are at. So just trying to figure out a baseline for all that.
So we are provided, or we have been in the past, like a disciplinary, like if you've been disciplined a number of times, then, or whatever the offense was, the recommendation, and is that done by the AQB or where does that come from? I know we've seen that at Arrow.
William Kopchick.
Sorry, say that again?
So I know at one point we saw, there was something presented at Arrow that said, hey, for, first time and, something like this would be a recommended.
That would probably be an arrow-based matrix. We don't have one for this commission. So there has been a shift away from civil penalties from earlier days in the commission. So we haven't had the need for a civil penalty. But I would say, just to explain, I don't really see very much. First of all, if we're making different decisions, it can be supported based upon, the different facts and circumstances, or like the totality of the circumstances. Like in particular, in this case, we have a lot of infractions, like it's a lot of mistakes to the point that we have not a great report. And so I think in that case, maybe a civil penalty, something more would be, warranted. Another reason I think previously maybe there is a shift away from civil penalties is the fact of educating versus a civil penalty. But I will stay in the circumstance, even if we're assessing education, there is a cost associated with that. So I don't think you have to necessarily weigh the two. I don't think that one is more stringent than the other. The other one is just probably going to provide you the person with more resources of things to do. But if you think it's beyond corrective courses, of course, that's available too. So it just depends on what you all are looking to do. Of course, we would want to be consistent in the kind of matters and the decisions that we make. However, we don't have a significant historical reference of these types of situations. So I wouldn't take saying if we decide this for this case versus another one as we're necessarily being inconsistent what we're doing. And to answer the earlier question, this individual's license was renewed, so it doesn't expire until 12/31/2027. So I think you just want to make, maybe we have an initial discussion of whether we think education would be appropriate or not, and then go from there and look and see whether to assess civil penalty, suspension, revocation, combination of the two, or a combination of all four. But I mean, if you want, you can take piece by piece and go from there.
Taylor Vandiver, my personal opinion at the moment would be leaning education. The person was licensed in 2000. A lot has changed in the field in 25 years. And maybe they've gotten complacent is what I would maybe say, or maybe a pattern of behavior that's acceptable to certain clients, and all of a sudden it wasn't. So I think maybe a little bit heavier dose of education, something attention getting, something that takes a little bit more time than what we're normally prescribing. And I'm also not opposed to civil penalty.
I have a question, Francie Mello. Who asked the person to revise the report? Was it the bank or was it a reconsideration of value? If you know.
You know, William Hasten, I reviewed this report, but I reviewed the original report because I feel like that's where the complaint stemmed from. So I did not review nor do I know the reason it was the second appraisal occurred.
And just for reference, Commissioner Hasten did review the complaint, so he won't be voting. But if you had questions that he's able to answer, he can answer those questions.
And I'm pulling up the file just to see in the complaint if they specify that, your question.
Something else that might provide some clarity, because I know we've got, some individuals who just do commercial versus residential. So I would, on the commercial side, like if you were to get a revision, on the residential side, it would be listed in most AMCs required, like, hey, I did this, this, and this, and this revision. On the commercial side, probably not as much. You would just revise the report, make the changes. And so, if that's something that, you're maybe not familiar with. And so he or she sounds like that the residential appraisal and didn't do that, which is, I don't know where that falls in USPAP, but sounds like they were confused by it. So just provide some clarity there.
Whoops, okay. It sounds like they didn't really support anything in the report. They didn't support their adjustments. They didn't support their land value. And then when they increased the value by $100,000 without any support except that they added 2 additional comparables, it sounds just made up. I mean, you would not increase a value by $100,000. It sounds like somebody said, hey, you did this wrong. And when they realized they had taken comps from another county, they just didn't go back and talk about that or change the report to show the support. I think they did a horrible job. But now what we do, how do you correct everything wrong they did in this report? That's the question.
And to answer your previous question, the response says, the report was revised to correct some errors. Also, some sales and a listing were suggested for inclusion. One sale that did not go through MLS was summarized and considered. One listing was added to the report. This prompted me to increase my estimate.
Also, just like to chime in after what Vice Chair Tuck was saying, as we know, our primary position for the commission is to be consumer protection. So we obviously have a very deficient report here, and we have 1 complaint. So we want to decide, whether it is as egregious as we don't want this person to continue to write reports, or we want reports to be continued to be revised so this doesn't happen again. And then, consider the impacts that a deficiency like this may have on the consumer or whoever is involved in the transaction. Those are factors and things that you can consider when making those determinations. So I'll also state this. When we draft these matters as Glenn was saying earlier, if the individual does not accept our consent order, for whatever reason, then that matter would then proceed to a formal hearing before you all. And then at that point, you are not held to the discipline that you issue today. If for some reason you were to find it to be more egregious at that point, less egregious, it determines it's basically presented to you de novo. So, and also remember that this can be very specific to this person or this instance and doesn't have to be the way that we operate moving forward for every type of complaint that we go through. So I want to relieve any kind of worry or stress as if we're setting some type of very strong precedential value here. I think having discussion and making a decision is the best thing that we can do based upon what we have here. So
yeah, each case is a fact by fact basis, especially with this commission, because they're all unique issues that come up based on what the appraisal is for and the intended use. And then I think off of that, another thing to consider is the person's history. And we take that into consideration with each vote. So I think that can also change what you determine for each case.
Mark Sunderman, I also agree with the thought that education may be the way to go on this, because we're dealing with a person who has been in practice for 25 years, and we have no record of any complaints. I mean, that doesn't mean that he or she has done a perfect job for 25 years, but no one has found that things have been bad enough to complain. And realistically, a lot has changed in 25 years, and very possibly education is needed at this time. I would hope that this person is competent enough that if they take the education, this may be what's needed to correct the problems in the future. If not, I guess we'll see it again.
And each of the corrective education courses are designed so that they're each have an exam and can be assigned based on the issue. So if you want to go through multiples of those, I do believe they have to take an exam for each of those corrective education courses.
This is Eric Robinson. In the time that we've spent on the board, we've never revoked a license. We've suspended one once, but that was for a non-writing violations. We have done some civil, but usually that's for people that have done multiple. They've had a history of doing this. Education, most definitely, all of it. I mean, stack it up. But, and again, that too incurs a cost because they have to pay for all of the different courses that they take.
No, you're 100% right. And that might provide some clarity for Mr. Bynum. So, multiple offenses with something like this, that's when, the board in the past has maybe taken a stronger stance. So I guess my thoughts or issues is what sort of education would cover all of this, there's highest and best use issues, cost approach, sales comparison approach, reconciliation, the report writing classes. It's fine, but I don't know that you're going to get a lot out of that.
William Hasten, again, I don't know what I can and cannot say, and I'm not trying to influence the commission at all. But I don't think Brett was chairman was indicating or insinuating this, but I think this needs more education than just the online, 4-hour courses that are available in typical violation situations.
Taylor Vandiver, one more thing, in my opinion, about the education is not only does it cost money to take the classes, but it's an opportunity cost. You're not, working in your business. To kind of go back to Mr. Byram's question, it is actually more punitive than it sounds, in my opinion. Time away from your business, and having to do those classes as well.
Eric Robinson, that education, the courses that they have to take for this do not count towards their continuing education, correct?
Glenn Kopchak, that's correct.
Alex Bynum, and so of course, while we're on the subject, because I am trying to just understand, and I get what everybody's saying. I just have to, as the at-large member, I look at it from a different standpoint than you all do. You've got to remember that even though I'm in the real estate world and I, you know, heavily involved in this world, I have no idea what you all go through. I don't have an appraiser's license. I don't understand that. Lots of this stuff that I read, you know, it's almost still a little foreign. So when I ask these questions, it's to have a better understanding so we can protect the public. I will tell you all that when I read this stuff, I have to remind myself that when we protect the public, you've got to remember with appraisers, it's a lot different than in real estate, because in real estate, it's easy to identify when somebody is committing an egregious act and to file a complaint. I think that the consumer many times doesn't know how to file a complaint or doesn't know what is actually complaint worthy, which is a lot different than in the real estate world or in other licensing, you know, if it was a home inspector or whatever. I do think it's a little bit harder for people to get to the point of where they want to file a complaint. And so I think that people could go a lot longer without receiving a complaint, even though they are negligent or they're just really not doing their job properly. Because a lot of times when you read through these, they may not be doing what's exactly right, but it's still not worthy of, you know, any action. And I will say that, so when I look at this, if I get pulled over, you know, if I'm speeding, I know what the speed limit is. I get pulled over, I've got to go to driving school, I've got to do education, I've also got to pay a fine. You know, I always, you know, Francie knew my grandfather, and my grandfather would always say that you can learn something the easy way or the hard way, but the best way is for when it gets in your pocketbook. And I do see that these people are out here making a living and making big decisions for an investment or for somebody purchasing a house that can absolutely affect the trajectory of their life because they did not get to buy this piece of property because of one report that an appraiser does. So I look at an appraisal as being the most important part of a transaction, you know, many times, because that can either make or break a deal. And I just hold it to a higher standard than even what maybe some of you all would, as far as where I place competency amongst this. And whenever you have, you know, if you have all this stuff, I mean, they're still making a living off of doing, you know, off of doing appraisals. And there should be some type of action. You know, if you're out here and you're not following by the same guidelines that you all should, there should be a civil penalty. I absolutely believe that. If they're not practicing at the same standard that you all are, that's on this commission, that have appraiser's license, and they are committing egregious acts, I agree, or I believe in wholeheartedly that they should be fined for that.
And just to give you guys some more background information, when we were looking at this respondent's file on our records, so we don't list conditional dismissals in the history, which the commission does, where a person has no history and they have minor violations within a report. We offer them a conditional dismissal, which allows them to take a course, and then the complaint is dismissed. This respondent did previously have 2 complaints filed in 2020 and 2022, which were closed with a conditional dismissal, in which they took a cost approach course, a market analysis and highest and best use course, a sales comparison course, and a report writing course. They're not listed on here because they are technically dismissed, and those goes towards their continuing education, but I just want to give you that information.
Yeah, that's good information, because those are the same classes that would basically cover what we're talking about here. I don't even know a different education to recommend.
And these were not the corrective education courses. These were just general continuing education courses, just to clarify.
So the respondent took these continuing education classes as part of
A conditional dismissal. And so that those complaints were closed without any action is how it's coded, which is why it has no history.
So legal recommended that they take those classes in order for the dismissal to be conditional, or a conditional dismissal.
Correct. And those were based on 2 complaints.
Well, when we have conditional dismissals, also we'll occasionally consult with the expert reviewer to see what education they believe would be most appropriate. So these are the courses that were sent. So we've got 4 different ones have been assessed.
Taylor Vandiver, what is the total cost and total amount of hours available in the corrective course handbook?
Let me pull up the list again. So I can tell you how many courses there are. There's appraiser self-protection, documentation, and record keeping. That's 1. Report certifications, what am I signing and why? That's 2. Residential report writing versus form filling, that's 3. Scope of work, appraisal, and inspections, that's 4. Assignment conditions, elements, and results, that's 5. Missing explanations, that's 6. Sales comparison approach, reconciliation, that's 7. Ethics, competency, and negligence, that's 8. And each course is $325.
Yeah. So they're 4 hours long online courses and completed by passing a comprehensive exam.
And these would be different than what he had been asked to take.
So
Cool.
these courses are designed specifically for corrective education circumstances. However, the courses that were taken before are longer, but not necessarily tailored towards that. So they're regular continuing education courses.
And
Qualifying education courses.
Yeah,
Yes.
that part.
And they just clarified that these courses were not around at the time of the previous conditional dismissals.
Yeah, so essentially they've had more education though than would be.
And were the courses, I'm sorry, tell me again when these were ordered?
2020 and 2022.
And do we know if they were online or in person?
I'm going to make a strong assumption that they were online.
Again, I am abstaining, but I just don't feel like an online course is warranted here. I feel like there just needs to be some presence. I don't know what I can and can't say. But.
Right. Well, we can't necessarily require someone to take an in-person course since in-person courses are not required. So it's not something we can necessarily do, especially considering now since there's a prevalence, we don't know where these courses may be for that person if they're even available in Tennessee, if that makes sense. So they would probably still be online courses.
This is Eric Robinson. So,
Mhm.
but these courses weren't available. Okay.
At the time of these matters.
And everything that he took previously, he took and it went towards his continuing education and everything else, where these courses will not go towards his continuing education. Now, pay
Correct.
for them, take these correctional courses in addition to whatever he does for his continuing education.
Correct.
Would you read those courses one more time? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was a cost approach course, a market analysis, highest and best use course, a sales comparison course, and a report
I'm
writing.
sorry, the other ones. Yeah, the
Oh, I'm
corrective education.
sorry. Yes. So the first one is, I'll just read each course and what it says on the little blurb it has under it. The first one is appraiser self-protection, documentation, and record keeping. This is learn how to protect yourself by maintaining proper documentations and safeguarding files. This course covers best practices for organizing and securing work files. Report certifications, what am I signing and why? Gain a deeper understanding of the certifications you sign, learn the difference between limiting conditions and certifications, and understand how independence and legal obligations intersect. The next one is residential report writing versus form filling. Explore the differences between filling out a form and writing a defensible report. Learn how to evaluate the strength of your own reports and avoid common pitfalls in templated responses. The next one is scope of work, appraisal, and inspections. Clarifies how to define and disclose scope of work, emphasizes the importance of appropriate data collection and communicating intended use. The next one is assignment condition elements and results, breaks down an extraordinary assumptions, hypothetical conditions, and other assignment conditions, explains how to distinguish between assignment elements and assignment results. Missing explanations, focuses on the narrative gaps that often lead to misleading reports, teaches where comments, explanations, and rationale are needed to ensure the intended user can understand the report. Then the next one is sales comparison and approach, examines how to write a meaningful reconciliation section when using the sales comparison approach, identifies when more commentary is required and when less is acceptable. And then ethics, competency, and negligence provides a clear explanation of the USPAP ethics rules and competency rule, including real-world examples, clarifies how to distinguish between lack of competency and professional negligence.
Out of those, number 3, number 6, number 7, and number 8 sound the most relevant and applicable to the situation. That totals 16 hours of classroom and $1,300 in costs. Does that sound right? For classes?
That is correct on your math. Yep. That's Glenn Kopchak.
I would still suggest a $250 civil fine for each of the offenses. So a total of $1,000.
Yeah, I was gonna make a motion for 500 for the 4, so you're looking at $2,000 there, and then the 2 classes, report writing, and then the missing explanations. So, was there another class that?
Glenn Kopchak, we can read those. You said 3, 6, 7, and 8. You want us to read those courses out loud and see if that
Yeah, read the title of number 3, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Taylor Vanderburg.
Okay. Number 3 is residential report writing versus form filling. Number 6 is missing explanations. Number 7 is sales comparison approach reconciliation. And number 8 is ethics, competency, and negligence.
This is Sandra Tuck again. What is scope of work? Was that number 3?
Scope of work is number 4, and it says clarifies how to define and disclose scope of work, emphasizes the importance of appropriate data collection and communicating intended use.
I think that one should be included too.
All right. So Glenn Kopchak here. Do we have a motion then, something in that regard, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8? Or that's so, you're looking at 5 courses at $325 a piece, at 20 hours, and then whatever civil penalty.
This is Brett Mansfield. I'll make a motion. So those 5 courses, $250 per item here, which is 4. So that would be $1,000 civil penalty. Give them, 90 days maybe to take those? 60 days, 90 days? They're 4 hours. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at the commission's discretion. In the past, I believe we've done 90 days.
Okay. Yes. And so 90 days to take that, and it doesn't go towards your continuing education. So.
Sorry. And were you recommending $1,000 civil penalty is what you said?
Yes, plus those courses.
This is Eric Robinson. I second it.
So we've got a motion and a second. So I think we're ready to roll call vote. Any further discussion?
Sorry. All right, we got a motion and we have a second for the, let's see, 5 courses and $1,000 civil penalty. Is that correct? Am I missing anything else or? All right,
That's what's on the table,
Okay.
yes.
roll call vote then. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Aye.
Will Haston.
Abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Francie Mello,
Aye.
Sandra Tuck,
Aye.
Nelson Pratt,
Aye.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Aye.
Eric Robinson,
Aye.
and Alex Bynum.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
That's the end of the legal report.
Sure.
Um, this was supposed to be in the agenda, but is legislative season. There have not been really any bills that were filed directly related to real estate appraisers. So I'll inform you all of the bill that I've been letting our board members know about that I think would impact you possibly, but not really. Is this one is related to military families. So we already have rules and laws on the books related to military families and at a state and federal level. However, this bill would essentially expand that kind of licensing to apply to active and retired military members that and their dependents would be permitted licensure based upon orders or those types of situations. So this is just, it's not something that would necessarily impact you directly. It's more on the licensing side, what is required for us to process those types of applications. So it just requires a couple of additional safeguards, but the substantial difference between this and what we're doing right now would be the addition of dependents to this particular situation. So all of the other bills that are running at this moment, I don't think would necessarily significantly impact the commission. Any questions? Fantastic.
All right. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. And that falls on our new business, so that works out perfect. Did you guys have any other new business, or this is Glenn Kopchik, by the way? All right. Public comments then. Do we have anyone that signed in online? All right. We don't have anyone on. Glenn Kopchik, we don't have anyone online or signed in at the podium. So, Chair, it's your pleasure to adjourn, if you will, if you want to gavel us out.
All right, this will conclude our meeting.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all.